Hey everybody, Alicia here, and you're listening to the Self-Awearness podcast, where we share mental health journeys from all different types of backgrounds. Thank you for being here, and let's get into the show. Hey everybody, today we have Chris Vandonsel. He is an Army veteran based in San Francisco, and today he's going to share his journey about how his encounter with God allowed him to open up and want to start using resources to start his mental health journey. I'm so excited to share this story, so let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Self-Awearness podcast. Today I have Chris, and we're going to hear his story. Thank you for being here for season 2. And let's get into the story. Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm an Army veteran, 4 years. I just got out a year ago. I've been on a mental health journey my whole life. I think maybe from 12 years old all the way until now. So this is really like close to home to me. And I'm really happy that I get to be on this show with you, Alicia, and share the story. And I hope that it helps you. And I'm hope that we all come out of this feeling encouraged and just giving each other hope for life and just everything that we're going through.
Yay, I'm excited. Thank you so much for being here. For anybody who doesn't know, Chris and I have been good friends for over a year. And so it's really nice to sit down and hear his story. So I'm really excited. And so my first question is normally, what is the age maybe you realized what mental health was? You mentioned your journey started at 12. So is there any memories before that of what you thought mental health was?
Honestly, I didn't know what mental health was until I was around 16 years old. Anything before that, it felt like such a fog, like a blur. I remember having traumatic experiences growing up, but my mind didn't compute them. My mind didn't say, "Oh, that was bad," or you're suffering through something. Like it didn't go through my brain that that was a thing. I was just like, wow, like I built all these walls and all these self-defense mechanisms without even noticing it, honestly, until I was 16 years old.
What? I can definitely relate to that of subconsciously building these walls and defensive coping mechanisms. Now that I look back since I've started my journey, so thank you for sharing that. So with that, is there a day that you specifically remember maybe that you can pinpoint that you started your mental health journey, or just kind of like if it wasn't a day, like what time frame?
Yeah, so it started when I was 16 years old. I remember I was in high school and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd literally break down and cry. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I would cry and cry and cry, like wailing, crying. Like I was so hurt. And I didn't understand. I was like, why am I so emotional? Why am I breaking down every morning? I can't even go to school. And I'm like, why do I hate myself? I would look in the mirror and I literally I would hate myself. I didn't want to live. I just didn't want to exist. I just wish that I never was born. And my mom, I could see my mom, like my mom's face would just anguish and she was just like, why is my son going through this? And I think seeing my mom feel that towards me and not understand, I knew she loved me, I knew she cared about me, but she didn't know how to deal with it because it was a foreign thing to her. That made it even worse because I felt so alone and didn't know what was going on, honestly.
Yeah.
I knew something at that point. I knew, okay, there's something really wrong here because I can't even get out of bed. I can't even go to school. And I knew something needed to change at that point.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so vulnerable. And I really appreciate you sharing the part about your mom because I feel like you said, it's a foreign thing to a lot of people of helping people with their mental health or visually. Obviously, she saw that you were struggling, but didn't know what to do and how to help you and how to support you. So I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that. So my next question is, so you're at that point where, okay, thankfully you identified there's something wrong here, even though, it's not a good feeling. But what was your first step after making that realization?
So my first step, um, I remember my mom would force me to go to church.
Mhm.
And I was just in this church service. I didn't listen to the preacher or anything like that. I was kind of like in La La Land. And I remember I felt something in my stomach. It was like you need to talk to God. Like
Mhm.
you need to reach out to God. And I'm like, "Ah, I don't want to. Like I don't even know if he's real or not." And I remember, you know, going by myself and kind of just I asked God, I was like, God, are you real? And if you're real, I'm right here. And in that moment, I felt this warmth and I felt a love that I haven't felt since I was a little kid. Like I was 16 years old. I haven't felt that since maybe I was like 6 years old. And I just felt loved for the first time. Like I didn't hate myself.
Mhm.
And that moment kind of just like, I kind of felt awake again. And from that moment, from experiencing that and being like, okay, like maybe God is real.
Mhm.
Whoa, like this is so crazy. Like from there, I was able to get a little bit of footing and start looking for mental health therapists for teenagers. And then at that point, I was open to it
Mhm.
because before I wasn't. And I think that moment just the lights came on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do something about this. I'm awake now.
Mhm.
It was like such a interesting experience. So I think love,
Mhm.
feeling love really breaks down those walls and makes you aware of what's going on, I think.
I love that so much. A lot that you said that even I can relate to, as far as like also like I grew up going to church too, and like being able to feel that presence of God and feel that abundance of love that we really can't explain. So thank you so much for sharing that moment with us. And I really admire how you describe the feeling in your body too. And, to even taking it back to the memory of what you used to feel like. And I think that's a good point because maybe sometimes like we wonder, how did we get to this safe, loving mindset as a child, because you're not using your mind as much, to the point where you were 16 and then you kind of like maybe ask yourself like what happened in between, how did I get here? But it was just like to have that moment with your faith and with God and being able to surrender, that actually took you back to that initial moment. So I think that's so beautiful, and I'm really happy that you shared that. I think a lot of people didn't have a moment where they felt like they could move forward, kind of like how you did. Like things were so dark and now they're so light, and now I have courage. Maybe not everybody's journey is like that, but then you touched on multiple different resources that you reached out to, like teens that you wanted to like get around a new environment, start looking for resources. I think that's really awesome. So, can you give us an example of what that looked like when you were reaching out to all these different types of resources?
Yeah, I think at that point, I just want to explain that my mom is very old school. She's like from Nicaragua. She didn't believe mental health was a thing. Like she didn't believe depression or anxiety existed.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I got to that place where I couldn't even go to school, I think something clicked in her mind and she was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this does exist because my son's going through this
Yeah.
and it's really intense right now. And once I was open to getting help, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I need help. Maybe like the hospital can help me or something like that. And so we both went to the hospital, my doctor, and we were telling him what was going on, and they were like, okay, yeah, we could refer him to a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and your son could get some therapy through them. And so I was like, yeah, sign me up. Sign me up.
Yay! I love that because I forgot to mention this earlier. But like for my story, maybe others can relate to this too. If you would have told me at like 15 or 12 that, hey, all you have to do is like go to therapy and start doing healthy coping mechanisms, I would have said, yeah, get out of my face. Because I was not at the point where I was ready to and open to start getting resources and start getting help, even though I was in the point of like the defensive coping mechanisms. So I really like how you elaborated on the now you are willing to try and see whatever works for you. And I think you laying out, we got to go somewhere, let's go to the hospital, let's talk to our doctor. I think that's going to help a lot of people too. I also appreciated, like, I think a lot of people that I've interviewed already have also experienced that their family history, their culture, they didn't even think, like, they didn't even believe in mental health, like mental well-being, that you can like make it better or that it could be bad. So thank you for giving that example.
Yeah.
So now you're at the point your mom, she has identified, okay, depression is real. We are walking through this. And now he wants to get help. He's asking for me to help. And you guys are walking through this together. So, what was it like going to that first therapy session?
Honestly, the whole experience was very embarrassing, and I felt just so vulnerable and naked, and I don't think anybody ever talks about that.
Hmm.
Like, I honestly felt ashamed,
Hmm.
especially I think there's like a stigma around like men um as well. Like if a man goes to therapy, then there's something wrong with him. Like, oh, maybe he's not manly enough, or maybe he's not tough enough. And so I was coming into this experience and it just felt so humbling, humiliating, a little bit embarrassed. And yeah, so coming into that experience, going to the my first therapy session, I remember I had my doubts and I had my walls up.
Hmm.
And I was just like, why do I even have to be here? Like, why can't I be like the other kids? They don't have to come to this. They don't have to do this. And I think that the therapist did a really good job, like assuring me, and I was able to slowly but surely, like, start unpacking these things that I was feeling.
Yay! Thank you so much for sharing that and the feelings that came up. I think this is the first time somebody has mentioned having the thought of like, why do I even have to be here? Like, I think a few of our guests, including myself, like I compare my mental well-being and my journey and help I get to others of, well, others can do this without no problem of suffering mentally or emotionally, but why am I suffering? This is so simple, so it's easy to like be hard on yourself. So thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable now again and being able to share that with our listeners too and let them know it's okay to have any of those feelings and any of those thoughts because you were able to start that process and your therapist seemed like a good support system that you connected well with and were able to walk through. Just to get an idea, because I think this is something that's not also talked about, was your therapist a woman or a man?
My therapist was a woman, and I remember I coming into it, I thought it was gonna be like the movies or the shows.
Hmm.
And in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm gonna, lay down in a couch. I'm gonna spill out my whole life,
Yeah.
and they're gonna be empathetic and just listen to me for hours and ask me questions and go deep. And when I showed up, yeah, the therapist, she was very kind. She was very kind, but she said, "We're about action. So we're gonna hear the symptoms
Mm,
that you're having, and we're gonna tackle the behaviors behind that."
mm.
And so in that moment, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought I was gonna be able to have like a kind of like a pity party. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like it felt good. I was like, oh, I'm so sad and she's going to understand
Yeah.
how bad my life is, you know? And in that moment, I was like a little bit upset because it wasn't how I pictured it in my mind.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I'll actually have to change. I
Yeah.
don't think that that's like oh, I have to change my actions.
Mhm.
I don't want to. I'm comfortable in that.
Yeah.
And so that really caused like friction inside of me. And I honestly felt a little bit upset.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I guess we'll go do it your way, right? And so we would talk about the symptoms I had, like the anxiety, the like what thoughts were going through my mind, and like then we went through like you know how to rewire those thoughts. And I was like, man, this is not gonna work. This is
Mhm.
not gonna work. Whatever. And she was like, I want you to like practice this during your days,
Mhm.
and I promise you, you're gonna see something different.
Yeah.
So I don't think I think people have such a different view of like what therapy actually is.
Yeah. Thank you for laying that out in description. And that also the stigma is that people imagine therapy being a certain way for somebody who's never tried it. And yeah, the stigma is, oh wait, I have to do work? Ah!
Yeah,
Yeah, I did like a 6 month group therapy, and it was like every single day I was feeling emotions that I had been avoiding, like we were saying when we were teenagers, those defense mechanisms. And I was like, oh, so now I have to sit here for an hour and feel these emotions at the worst of it just to get better. I'm like, that
yeah,
sucks. But yeah, therapy is work, and thank you for explaining how it really is, because I think a lot of people don't understand that, like you said, they imagine it's a pity party and that someone's going to be soft on them and just give them a safe environment. But technically, this is more of a safe environment,
yeah,
like talking with friends.
yeah.
Um,
It's true.
but therapy is like you're doing the work. And something that you also pointed out was that, kind of like you mentioned, like you woke up and you were crying, like, why am I crying? I don't even know. But subconsciously, you probably had thoughts in your head that were creating those, the thoughts created the emotions. And then before you knew it, you were like having all these emotional times without even realizing it.
Yeah,
And that's something I also learned in therapy. So yeah, it's a uncomfortable journey, but thank you for sharing that. And I'm so proud of you. I hope you give yourself some grace about, have that strength to actually start that and do that. And like you said from the beginning, that you were at the point you were willing to get help. And even though you were in that room and she told you, okay, now you have to do work, you still were willing to do the work versus like, oh, wait, I gotta do work. I gotta leave.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's other stuff too. But yeah, I just want to like commend you for doing that. So awesome.
yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
I'm curious. So you're still 16 at this time, right?
Around like 18 at this point.
Okay. I asked because I'm curious what your friend group was like at that point, and were people like friends your age, friends older than you that were your friends? Did they know what you were going through? Were they supporting you in any way, or did they ask how, or just try to by being a good friend?
Yeah, so at that point, when I was 16, I actually didn't have friends. I just had associates that I would see at school.
Hmm.
But beyond that, I would literally just go home and be by myself. After my experience with God, I got more involved in church.
Hmm.
And through going to church, then I built like actual real relationships
Yeah.
with people. I started to. I didn't know how to. I was kind of socially awkward, so I was learning how to be a friend.
Yeah.
I was learning how to be a normal person at that point because I was the type of person antisocial. I would clam up. I wouldn't even know how to somebody say hi to me.
Hmm.
I wouldn't even know how to respond to them. I was so scared of just talking to people. And I remember going to this new church, and I walked in, and it was like if God brought the right people in my life, because I remember walking into this church, and one of my buddies, now he was my buddy afterwards, but at the moment he was just a stranger.
Yeah.
He just walked up to me, gave me a huge hug,
Oh.
and he said, "Welcome.
Oh.
I'm going to introduce you to everybody in this place." And he literally we went one by one to every single person.
Mm.
Even like the people you think, oh, they're so cool, or they're like kind of like, they don't want to get to know me or whatever.
Mm.
He went one by one introducing me and saying, "Look at my new friend, Chris." And I never experienced that before. All I ever experienced was like walking up to people and be like, "Oh, I don't know you. Like, I don't want to talk to you." And I didn't have the social skills to try to make friends.
Yeah.
So I would just give up.
Yeah.
So I think that was the beginning of building friendship. And through that friendship, actually, I also gained the courage to go to therapy as well when I was 18.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's funny because, like I said, Chris and I are friends, but I mean, we were both had social anxiety when we were younger, but now I feel like we're both like social butterflies. And I feel like you're the person to introduce everybody there.
Yeah, now I'm that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so beautiful.
I think once you get a lot of healing,
Hmm.
you don't want people to ever go through that.
Yeah.
You don't want people to go through the pain that you felt.
Hmm.
So like you're willing to go the extra mile.
Yeah.
You're willing to, I remember what I felt. I
Mhm.
felt horrible
Hmm.
inside. And you never want anybody to ever feel that again. So you go and you do the things that helped you come out,
Yeah.
the things that helped you overcome all these pains
Yeah.
and receive healing. And I think once you heal, it makes you want to try to help heal others.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I feel like that's why we're here hearing stories and sharing stories. For a while now, I don't know, maybe like 8 years, I've been a mental health advocate. And when I first got it started, I was like trying to be everywhere for every person. And then I was like, oh, wait, I can't really physically be with every person I care about.
Yeah.
So I was kind of bummed out. But then I was like, oh, maybe it's even more important that I can be that example. Kind of like you said, like, what that friend did for you was welcome and accept you and love you. And now that's what you do for others. And it obviously makes a big difference.
Hey everybody, Alicia here, and I wanted to take a sec to show you our updated website where you can find information on our podcast episodes. You can find our mental health merch, our latest merch, and our favorite merch. But most importantly, I wanted to show you our mental health resources if you're looking to start your mental health journey. Check out our blogs with all this free information, and I hope you're enjoying the show, so let's get back to it.
We started this podcast of you mentioning that when you were a teen, you had not good coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Do you have any that you felt that you grew over time once you started your mental health journey and maybe that you use now?
Yes. I think the biggest one that helped me is being aware of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like a thought will go through my mind, and I won't just accept it as mine.
Yeah.
I won't just be like, oh, that's my thought.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, okay, that's a thought.
Yeah.
Where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And is it a good thought?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this a logical thought? And I think analyzing the thought really helped me throughout with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, if we just, back then I just accepted
Yeah.
all the thoughts as my own. So I'd just be in so much confusion,
Mm-hmm.
so much confusion. But then when I started choosing which thoughts were mine,
Uh-huh.
okay, this is my thought.
Uh-huh.
I claim this thought.
Uh-huh.
Then it brings so much power into your life.
Yeah.
It brings like, you have authority over your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, a lot of times people that have mental illness, mental health struggles, it's because we let go of that control.
Yeah.
Like this is too hard. This is too much work. I'm kind of like gonna let go of my thoughts, like
Mm-hmm.
being in control of my thoughts right now.
Yeah.
And that's when your mind could run rampant with all these thoughts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's the one that helps me a lot because my mind is very all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I really have to, that's the one that I honed in on the most. Because if not, I'd be in La La Land somewhere.
I love that because that's something I learned in therapy too, that kind of goes back to maybe subconsciously the thoughts, you believe them and then they feel like, then you feel the emotion and then that's kind of how the cycle goes. So people maybe not even realize that you're automatically believing everything that pops into your head. And obviously that can have a bad outcome because not everything we think is true. So I like how you pointed out, yeah, having that strength or making sure you acknowledge that you have control of what you believe and what you don't believe, and that a thought can come into your brain and you can either toss it away or actually, um, you know, benefit from that thought. So to ask a little bit more about that, because I know there's a few different ways to go through this thought process. A negative thought comes into your head. You said this thought isn't mine. How did you learn that coping mechanism? Was it through therapy? Was it through the church?
It was through therapy.
Okay.
When I was 18 years old, the therapist said, what are the thoughts that go through your mind when you don't want to get out of bed?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt this gross feeling in my
Yeah.
stomach, and I was like, ooh, are we going there? And immediately all the thoughts came to my mind,
Yeah.
and I was like, whoa, these are screaming at me.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, you're ugly.
Mm.
There's no purpose in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so like she was like, okay, tell me them. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard to say. And I would tell her, I was like, I feel like I'm ugly. Nobody will ever love me. And in that moment, I'm like, whoa, like you kind of once you vocalize it
Mm-hmm.
and it's not hidden and it's not a secret in your mind,
Yeah.
you kind of realize this is not normal.
Yeah.
This is not a normal thought, you know? And so then once that happens, we could like kind of be like, okay, is it true? Like, or is it logical?
Mm-hmm. So we talked about your main coping mechanism. Is there another coping mechanism that you like to use besides that?
Yeah, I think the other coping mechanism that I like to use is going to the gym. Just because I think like I reached a plateau where I was, progressing in my mental health journey from 18 to 20. I grew so much, but then I reached a point where I'm like, okay, I know that I have the mental tools to kind of combat these thoughts and combat these feelings,
Mm-hmm.
but why am I just still kind of like plateauing?
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of times we stop at the mental
Yeah.
and we don't realize that, wait, there's like, maybe I could do something physically. Maybe I could build a
Yeah.
habit, like a physical habit that I could do that will help out and assist my mental health. And I think in that moment, like the seed was planted. I was like, hey, you need to go to the gym. Because the same thought came to me, like when I was 16 and to 20, I remember it was like, you're ugly. Like, no matter, it's like the thought in my head, like, hey, man, they're really evil thoughts. It's like, no matter how much therapy you do, you're still ugly. That was a thought I had in my head. And so I knew the solution was, okay, well, can I do something about that?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I can. I thought about it for a whole year. Hey, you need to go to the gym. Hey, you needed to go to the gym. And I just didn't have the courage. I didn't have the confidence to go until I reached a point where I it was like Christmas time and there was like a New Year's resolution thing and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, maybe I could like really put all my chips in and go all in and actually do this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe then I won't feel so bad about myself anymore. And so that's when it all started with the gym.
Yay, I loved how you shared that. You talked about progressing your doing an addition to your mental health journey with the physical journey. I thought that was like an enlightening way to look at it and a graceful way to talk to yourself about doing it, even though it's something that you were thinking about doing for so long. I like how you were being kind with yourself and not being pushy. But then when an opportunity presented itself at 21 is like when you took that step. So I love how you shared that because maybe a lot of us are at that point, or listeners that are listening are at that point where they feel like they're not at that point yet to start going to the gym. So I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, the main question I wanted to ask about going to the gym was I know it's hard to get a routine, especially if you've never been to a gym before. What 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 was that process like starting? But also, I wanted to ask what feelings came up starting, during, and maybe even now as you go to the gym.
Yeah, I think it started when the the thought of going to the gym entered my mind, but I wasn't ready to go.
Yeah.
So I would just honestly, I would watch hours and hours of videos
Uh huh.
of people that are gym people
Yeah.
talking about how to start the gym.
Uh huh.
So I would just, okay, I would watch a YouTube video. I would I start subscribing
Uh huh.
to fitness pages on Instagram
Mhm.
and watching their reels. And so even though I wasn't ready to do all these things they were talking about,
Yeah.
I think it was mentally preparing myself and kind of like be getting into that environment before getting into the environment. So I think just
Ah.
kind of like, okay, I see this advice on this gym person gave me advice on this. And so all these little tidbits, all these tips over like half a year, I physically wasn't ready to go. I mentally wasn't ready to go in. But then I started accumulating all this knowledge, all these
Mhm.
tips, to when it got to the point of like, okay, I actually know quite a bit about the gym. I don't physically know how to do it,
Yeah.
but I kind of get the concepts a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gave me the courage to actually seek out to try to go.
Mm.
And so I think that's a good way to do almost anything. Like if you want to be a car mechanic and I don't have the courage to just go to school and start becoming a mechanic.
Yeah.
I would say start following mechanic pages, start watching mechanic videos,
Yeah.
and just start like kind of consuming that kind of knowledge
Yeah.
until you get to the point where like, okay, I kind of like understand a lot of this stuff. You get the concepts in your mind and it gives you the courage to actually maybe step into the, admissions office for the mechanic shop
Yeah.
or whatever you're trying to get
Get
into.
information. Oh, I love that because there's so much from that. The first, if you are an influencer, this is your prime example that any page, like you said, the fitness pages, people posting their influencer videos or gym videos. That is such a demonstrating way to help someone visualize, get into the position of whatever they want to do, of actually visualizing what it's going to be like. So that's what you
Yeah.
were doing for like 6 months.
Yeah.
I did the same thing with my run club. I just like watched run clubs for like a year, but I was too afraid to go. And then after a year, I was like finally took that leap as well. And I'm not looking back now.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
as scary as I thought, but like, yeah, I love that you said that example about making that mind connection and then like building your belief about knowing more about it, because I think the more you know about something, the more comfortable you feel about it in general, and then more comfortable you feel at least trying it. So I love that for anybody who's in that position right now of wanting to go to the gym. That's
yeah,
really good insight.
yeah.
So say you've been going to the gym for like 3 to 6 months now. How has that like added to your mental health journey or any feelings that are new?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, the first 3 months, it's just awkward and weird and a new experience, and you're challenged. And you're also kind of combating thoughts of like, well, I'm not seeing results.
Yeah.
Um, so in the beginning of almost anything, there's like kind of like a learning curve.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going uphill, you're going uphill, going uphill, going uphill, and you know, there's a lot of things you have to deal with
Yeah.
in the beginning. But after, I would say after the third month, I would say you hit the top of the learning curve,
Uh,
and it starts becoming like, first of all, a habit, and then okay, I've done this a bit. You kind of like got your repetitions in, you've made your mistakes,
mm-hmm.
you 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 fell a few times, maybe missed a gym this week and stuff like that, but I somehow came back.
Yeah.
I got the courage to come back. And so, but then after 3 months, you start seeing the results
Yeah.
of the hard work that you
Uh-huh.
put in. And then that kind of just, your mind just takes it from there. You're just
Yeah.
like, you feel so encouraged.
Yeah.
You feel so much joy. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like me putting this work in translated into seeing a physical difference.
Mm-hmm.
And your mind just gets filled with dopamine.
Yeah.
And after that, now that you know that this work equals this result,
Uh-huh.
it's so much easier to go to the gym after that.
Yeah.
And you want to lift heavier weights and you want to run for longer
Yeah.
because you're like, I've seen the results before. And I think in the beginning, it's honestly like a lot of things, like you're running on faith.
Yeah.
Other people said that because they did it,
Yeah.
then they saw results. And so maybe if I do this, maybe I'll see results.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have faith in it yet
Mm-hmm.
completely. But once you see you see it with your own eyes and your body, it changes, then you're like, okay, it's not on faith. It's like, this is facts.
Yeah.
And so then you're just like, okay, I could go for it.
Yeah. I love that because I think, well, first of all, yeah, it's kind of like a seeing is believing thing. I love how you pointed out like the dopamine thing. And what I found out that I love about, especially like physical challenges, is that like, say if my goal is to do a 1 mile run, um, that's like instant dopamine, like instant like confidence I'm gaining because I set out a goal and I can actually physically see that I ran a mile
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that I did it and I felt it and it's like, okay, now what else can I do?
exactly. Oh my gosh.
But I like how you talked about, I guess you were like pretty much coming over a mental hurdle of the challenges of what it feels like starting a gym routine, of like having that determination, doing it even though it feels awkward and strange and new, overcoming all the feelings that you initially have to the point where you now feel comfortable. Now you want to kind of challenge yourself more and just like take yourself at a new fitness and mental level. So I love
Yeah.
that. I think I could definitely relate to that. I've been doing a fitness journey for I don't know, 9 years now, and I just can't imagine not working out because it makes me feel so good physically and mentally. Um, but I do want to ask our last question here. And my question is, if someone you met today was starting their mental health journey, what kind of advice would you give them?
First of all, I would just reach over and give them a huge hug and tell them everything's going to be okay. And just kind of hold them. And I think that it starts with love.
Mm,
Love changes everything. So that's the first thing I would do. And then after that, I would just, as a friend, I would just listen to them. I would listen to them and I wouldn't give them any advice. And I would just, because I remember the times when I was in my bed and I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want somebody to tell me how to fix my problems.
yeah.
I wanted just somebody to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want to be alone. And I think that that's the beginning. That's the beginning, is like, if somebody is struggling, just be with them. Just spend time with them. And through that love, you know, it breaks down the walls enough to then they have the courage to maybe seek out a little bit more resources. And then once they're ready to seek resources, then I would like, okay, like, let's knock on all the doors we can. And I'll help you knock on these doors. Because I've been there before. I was alone when I was doing it. I didn't want to be alone. So let's look at all the resources you might have and see which one's the best fit for you. So yeah, I think just kind of like partnering with them, acknowledging them, listening to them, and then once they're ready to move forward, you know, help them find resources.
Yay, I love that. I love that you talked about just showing grace and love, and that's really like the true beginning of any movement forward towards helping anyone start that healing process. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I know this is going to impact so many people, so I can't wait to just get this episode out. And for all of our listeners that want to connect with you, what is the best way that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, I think you could reach out to me through my Instagram. It's a little bit complicated, but it's Christopher, and then it's Vandonsel, Vandonsel, Christopher Vandonsel. That's my name, by the way. You could find me on LinkedIn. You could find me on Facebook as well. And I hope to connect with you. Honestly, if you're struggling, you know, I do ministry. And so don't be scared to reach out. You know, I'm a resource, and you know, I'm willing to listen to you and make new friends. You know, I love people. I love making new friends, so don't feel scared to reach out.
Yay, thank you. And everybody, we're going to wrap it up. So thank you for spending this time with us, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Hey everybody, thank you for watching this episode, and if you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe. It would mean so much to our channel, and I just want to thank you so much for supporting our mental health community. Thanks for listening. I hope to see you next episode, and have a good one. Bye!